Hi guys!
Hey everyone!
Welcome back to Live Vulnerably.
Thanks for tuning in. Glad you're here.
Yeah, today we're going to share a few storytellers that we are really inspired by. They're kind of different creators from different spheres, whether it be artists, authors, musicians, but we're going to talk about who they are and then kind of why we relate to them, because we want you guys to get a sense of who we are as people. We want to be vulnerable, and we thought this might be a fun way to kind of do that.
Yeah, one of the things we've been asked already with just the first couple videos we've done is a little bit more about who we are and what we're like, as opposed to just what we are teaching or what we're saying. So we're going to touch on that in a few future videos as well. So this is just one way to start, like Alicia said.
Yeah.
So without further ado, we're going to give you a list of just 10 of some of our favorite creators, why we like them, how we see them practicing vulnerability, because that's the name of the game with this channel, and then encourage you to check them out too. We'll tag as many as we can in this Instagram and Facebook. As we post this, just look for their tag and check them out too.
Yeah, you can see what they do there.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna start. So my first is Ryan O'Neal, and he does. You guys might know him. He does Sleeping at Last. That is a band, in case you didn't know. But he has themed albums. So he has one about touch, taste, smell, sight. That's about the senses. He has a few about space, and he has one about the Enneagram, which we particularly love and have mentioned. But I love his style of creativity. He really tells story. And he's able to take what it means, what it feels like to be human, and kind of put it into words and music, which is really beautiful. And he's vulnerable in the way that he actually has a podcast for many of the songs he's written, where he invites you into his process and shares about why he wrote what he did and how he came to the conclusion to build the song the way that he chose to. And it's just really beautiful stuff.
One of my favorites, or two of my favorites, are the couple Bob and Maria Goff. You may have heard of them. They're pretty popular in a few church circles. Bob Goff wrote the book Love Does. What a lot of people don't know is his wife Maria also wrote a book called Love Lives Here. And what I love about them is, like Alicia and I, they have very different backgrounds, upbringings, ways of seeing the world, perspective.
We relate.
Yeah, we do relate. And they've each written books about what it means to practically live out just simple, easy love for people, which is oftentimes not a simple or easy thing to do, but they make it seem so just so nurturing and compassionate in the way that they just simply love people and are really people to be looked up to, and we admire their unity as well in who they are as a couple. One of the things that I really love about both their books, there's a quote, and I have a cheat sheet here because
we may refer to it.
We'll probably refer to this cheat sheet a couple times, but Bob Goff has a couple quotes in Love Does. He says, "I used to want to fix people, but now I just want to be with them." And he says most people need love and acceptance a lot more than they need advice. And reading both Bob and Maria's books have challenged me a lot to just love people simply and not really make it about all the rules, but really make it more about developing a relationship with people, even amidst the messy. I think I would encourage you to check those books out.
They are delightful. Another one for me is C.S. Lewis. He is quite popular and known. He wrote Chronicles of Narnia.
Sorry.
And I love the way his stories make me feel. I love the way that they inspire me to kind of be more than I am and to seek adventure and purpose and intentionality in things. And I just love his writing style. He's very allegorical, which I appreciate, because I really like when something moves me. That's like my standard for creativity. Did it carry me somewhere? Did it move me? And his work really does. So he has many books. There are movies that have been adapted, which, the books are usually better than the movies, but they did a really good job with some of them. So yeah, highly encourage, if you haven't checked him out, to do so. He's really great.
My next favorite, I'm focusing on a screenwriter and director. His name's Taylor Sheridan. If you've seen Sicario, Hell or High Water, or Wind River, you would know his name. He was the screenwriter for all three of those films, and he directed Wind River as well. what I really love about Taylor Sheridan's writing style and his process is the fact that he came from an acting background and decided that he wanted to write films that he was interested in reading, because he was getting past a lot of scripts that, you know, weren't really speaking to him. And I think he's just a really great example of someone who's inspired to just create change right in the middle of where he's already at, and I think that's something we can all learn from. He didn't just wait for the scripts to come to him. He decided to write good scripts, and it parlayed him right into a filmmaking career. And then he also has just shown light on a few deeper issues with certain people groups in our country and outside of our country. He's also really just built with his writing an incredible just very real and vulnerable universe, so to speak, where the movies kind of all exist. Those three movies each exist within the same sort of realm. Sorry, there's a car driving by, so that just distracted me. Sorry if you heard that on the audio. So his films have just kind of inspired me. His scripts have inspired me with just how he was willing to create from process, really just create from a desire to want to read scripts that he would be interested in, and the product are just 3 incredible screenplays that I encourage you to read and 3 incredible movies I encourage you to watch.
They're very good. My third is Michelle Obama. I think she is amazing. I love the impact that she's had and just really chosen to have, but I also especially love her book. It's called Becoming. Coburn recently bought it for me. I've been really excited to read it, but she talks a lot about how...
I thought you read it already.
I have been excited, and I did read it.
Okay, I was like,
and you bought it for me. It was a wonderful gift. So I did read it, and one of the things, it's called Becoming, and I love that word because I think it really sums up us, like life, and you're always becoming something, and you kind of get to choose what you do become. And I also related really strongly because she talks about what it's like to be a woman building your voice and building your influence when you are primarily known because of your husband. And so for her as First Lady, she really was challenged by being known as like Barack Obama's wife, and that was her identifier, and how she curated so much intentionality in her life before him and before their presidency, that for her to just be like, oh, by proxy was a little bit challenging. And I relate to that just because the way that our lives have been. I really moved and stepped into Coburn's community in the beginning of our relationship, and they've definitely become mine now and dear, dear friends, but I do relate to having an influential husband and kind of relearning your own voice and making space for yourself, and then you can just have space in the world. You really make who you are. So I love that. I was very inspired by her book, Becoming. It's great.
I still have to read it. I want to. My number 3 is Ellen DeGeneres, and I love her because I think she is a voice of compassion in our culture, and she's a really widely known voice who started as a creator, still is a creator, but really that led into a much more influential career rather than just creating content, but also empowering other people to create. One thing that I love about her, like I said, is her compassion. I have another quote I wrote down because she said, everything bad that's ever happened to me has taught me compassion. And I feel like we have a choice as human beings, as life kind of happens to us, and people around us, say things about us or do things to us. We can internalize hurt, or we can actually let that lead to compassion. I think she's a really beautiful example of what that looks like, to let compassion be what you end up standing on and building your life and your creativity on. And one other thing I really like about her is that she empowers other creatives in such a beautiful way as they're in process. I can't even name the amount of times that you turn on Ellen and there's another new creator who was just discovered, who is still figuring out what their creative voice is, but she's given them a platform to experiment with that and get to create in front of an audience and be unashamed and unafraid to do that.
Yeah, she's a lovely human. We love her too. Another one of mine is actually Charles Bukowski, which he's definitely a little more melancholic, but I love the way that he reminds me of like the ache of humanity, and that really gives me a why for what we do and what I want to do to the world. Like, it reminds me of the hunger, and his writing is just beautiful. Like, some of it's really dark, but I like how he doesn't shy away from that, and I think a lot of people try to just be like, be positive, be positive, be positive, but you really have to look at both to be real. And I love that Charles Bukowski helps me remember to be real. He also has some really beautiful quotes that are just, he's a realist, I would say. So he has some very like, this is the way that it is, but I just feel like he calls out some issues, and he's really just shifted my thinking and reminded me, like I said, like of the hunger that people have to just be loved, essentially. So I like him. I would recommend reading him with a grain of salt, but I do really enjoy some Charles Bukowski. Fun fact, I actually had a cat named Charles Bukowski after Charles Bukowski. Very inspired.
You're adorable. My number 4 is Barry Jenkins, the filmmaker. Most of you would, if you know his name, you know him from Moonlight, which won Best Picture 2 years ago at the Oscars. And what I really appreciate about Barry Jenkins is that he he didn't let himself be limited by just a lot of outside factors to actually tell the story he wanted to tell. And he made a film with Moonlight that by, I guess, all in intents and purposes, shouldn't have been seen by the mainstream according to Hollywood standards, and according to the rules of Hollywood, it doesn't seem like a sure bet of a film to make. But he made what was true to himself. He made what was honest. He made what was real, vulnerable, emotional, and he put it to screen beautifully, and made it a movie that actually got incredible attention for being so vulnerable and being so real. And then he also was able to take that into a career that has continued to step further into now an adaptation of If Beale Street Could Talk, which was one of my favorite movies of last year, which was another movie that just embraced vulnerability, process, heartache, pain, joy, celebration, in just a real beautiful hodgepodge of a story that just came together as true art. And I just admire him as a creator and as a filmmaker. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
You are welcome for sharing.
My last one for this video, at least, is a girl named Melissa McCracken, and she has synesthesia, I believe is how you say it, where she can see color when she hears sound, and that is like a dream. I think that's really, really beautiful. I love like shifting my perspective and being able to see things differently than I do. I love like messing with paradigms and the way that I don't know, I just like assumed perception is one thing, and I think we can take things for granted. So her art really reminds me to like the way that you can flip something and make it like the same thing can mean or be seen in so many different ways. So I love what she does. She takes a song and she'll play it and then paint to it. She paints the song, and it's so wonderful, and I really encourage you to check her out. I believe I wrote down her Instagram. It's Melissa McCrack. So Melissa MC.
You can tag it.
We'll tag it. She is, her work is stunning, and I highly, highly recommend.
I'm just realizing if we don't post that part on Instagram just yet, that maybe you should still say what her Insta handle is.
I will post it in the comments so you guys can follow her too.
Sorry to throw you off. My number 5, final one, is a woman named Audrey Assad. I love her music. She is a really beautiful singer-songwriter who writes songs that really espouse her faith and the struggle of faith as well. I am someone who considers myself not to latch onto a trendy term, but ex-evangelical. I don't like to consider myself an evangelical Christian, so I kind of shied away from that term, and kind of walking out a journey of what it means to be sort of removed from mainstream evangelical culture like I've always known it, and develop more of a relationship with God. And I think Audrey Assad in her music really portrays that journey beautifully, and has been very vulnerable and real, not just in her songs, but even in just the presence she cultivates online, with where she's at on her journey. And in her words, she's not afraid to wrestle with doubt and issues of faith, and questioning and learning to love and learning to listen. And I relate to that journey a lot, and it inspires me to be vulnerable in what I create, specifically when I'm talking about where I'm at in my relationship with God.
Well said.
Thank you. So there's...
Me?
Okay.
Those are kind of just a few people. We'd love to hear from you guys too, artists or creatives that inspire you. Instagram is so helpful and useful because you can just comment with their name or if they have Instagram in the comments below.
But I think if this video is going on Facebook and YouTube,
You can
then
still
it might
put
not
it
go
in the comments
on
below.
Instagram.
But we would love to hear what some of your people are, some of the people that inspire you. And so tag them or just name drop, and we would love to look in. I'm always looking for more music and more books to read, and yeah, we'd love to hear from you guys.
And as creators, we hope that these videos get better and better so that like a few years down the line, you can come and watch like these old videos and be like, oh boy, what a mess, in like a great way.
And here we are, the messy and the beautiful.
It's true. It's true.